I had to like go through and like check all my OBS settings because well, we haven't done one of these in like 6 months.
Right.
Had to go make sure everything was lined up for the return for season 2, you might call it.
Season 2. I mean, honestly, it's been long enough for it to be a season 2, unfortunately.
Well, welcome back after such a long time to the Big Tech Guys podcast. Welcome to season 2, episode 1. Uh, I'm John. I'm joined with my co-host Garrett.
That's me, Garrett, co-host.
It's been a long time since we made a video. I don't know. I guess I just lost motivation to like try to make an episode like after that esports one because the coronavirus just kept getting worse, and like I didn't want to just talk about the coronavirus every week for a few hours, I guess.
I definitely think that it got to a point to where it's not like we didn't have time to do them. In fact, we actually had plenty of time with the current situation of things. I just think, really, I don't know. I just couldn't really get myself hyped to do a podcast. Not that I necessarily need to be hyped, but you know what I'm saying. I couldn't really. It's the same thing as what you said, finding motivation to do it.
Yeah, I guess it was also just so much easier to like just sit down and play some video games and forget about the virus,
Right.
like rather than talk about the nitty gritty what Trump tweeted about the virus today compared to how many numbers on worldometers are changing by the second.
Right. Definitely much easier just to game with the boys.
Uh, I guess I'd like to, I guess to start off this episode, I called this topic the state of the tech guys because it's been so long and things have been so different since we last recorded an episode. I guess just like Garrett, like how's life at university?
It's different, obviously, and also something worth noting, I think, is that I mean, I actually have had coronavirus at this point and recovered as well, thanks to university. I actually went my entire summer in quarantine period without getting it. But within 2 weeks of me coming back to university, I got coronavirus.
I guess I got coronavirus too after being at college around the same time that you did. I was the type over from like that March until really August period where like I just did not leave my house unless I absolutely had to. And then I always wear mask. I was wearing hand sanitizer all the time. Like I was germaphobe maximus. And like I get to college, I continue those practices, and I got it in an instant.
Right. See, that was the thing that kind of just was incredible to me, honestly, is that I didn't change me like putting through extra precautions. Like I didn't get more relaxed or anything. I just got it. I think it's just more exposure around here.
Yeah, definitely, especially with being in like a classroom environment. You guys are still doing in-person classes, right?
I have actually a class that's mandatory attendance in person. So that's epic.
How does an in-person class in this world look in 2020? Like what is cuz I don't have really any in-person classes.
I mean, mostly it's just like 4 seat spaces between everyone, and it's like the seats that are like built in. You know what I'm saying? Like the spinny chairs that are like built into the desks. So like it's a decent distance between the next person, right? Honestly, the precautions that the university has taken have been very well. It's just people are just dumb. The amount of times I've seen people sit at desks that were clearly marked with it has a big red X sticker on it, like you're not supposed to sit there. And I've seen people literally they look at all of them. They see the one with the space, like they're scanning them, right? As they're standing in front of the row. They walk in, they walk past the one with the nothing on it, and they sit right at the one with the X on it. I'm just like, how? Are you just dumb, or do you think that you're like doing some kind of big power move on the university by just being, I don't know, just an idiot? Mind-boggling, I think, is the best way to describe that, honestly.
The X stands for sit here apparently.
Right. X marks the spot, I guess.
Yeah, so I know the way basically every university is handling it different. I know where I am. Um, we have I have two in-person things or two in-person obligations, if you want to call them that, because they're not necessarily classes. I have a mandatory attendance book club, but that meets like in a courtyard in a park where like we separate 6 feet or whatever, and we have to wear masks as like the university mandates. Um, and then I have a lab, which is indoors, but it's like what you were saying, except everybody in the room gets their own desk, I guess. So like you're never sharing space with like anybody. I don't know about you, but like I know my perspective is very shifted because I don't attend in-person class every day, but I don't feel safer anywhere else like around the college than like on campus. Like I feel like the precautions that are in place are maybe a bit excessive, but like I feel like if I'm going to get it, I'm not going to be getting it from like just being in class.
I didn't even do anything super crazy, but I know I didn't get it from class, honestly. I still am not really entirely sure. It's not like I went to any parties or anything, or did anything really dumb to get said, virus. But
It's weird like tracking it back because there's a lot of different places where like looking back you realize like, oh, I could have gotten it from here, I could have gotten it from there. I'm pretty sure I got it from, yeah, I'm pretty sure I got it from my roommate, but I mean, who knows? It could be anybody. Like when you really like after one step back, like my confidence in where I think that last step was, it goes down to zero.
it's it's something when you go back and think about it. I wouldn't say unsettling is the right word. It's just maybe discouraging. I don't know. Like looking back and seeing how many opportunities I had to have get it, and there are multiple viable opportunities to where I'm like, I think I could have got it here, And it's not like, oh, it was definitely that. Makes you think a little bit more paranoid style.
I'm definitely more paranoid about like my surroundings from like a germaphobe perspective after experiencing this virus for the last 6 months. Like looking back, like really looking back before virus, like I remember like sitting down in a movie theater and like watching a movie, like people shoulder to shoulder and like getting in line at Walmart to check out and people being as close as possible to each other. And like now like I am looking for the dot on the ground where I'm supposed to stand every time. Like if anybody coughs, I am bolting out of that area. Like I have legitimately been turned into a germaphobe and like just because of this one instance.
Well, I'd say at this point, considering we were talking about this 6 months ago and we're still talking about it, I remember saying at the beginning that we might be out of this in 2020. There's a chance. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What a time that was. Thinking we'd be done even at the end of 2020. That was wishful thinking in and of itself.
Yeah.
And here we are, looking at a more accurate proposition at being midsummer when we start distributing a vaccine, which means it will probably not be till the end of 2021. I feel like we'll never be completely free from the virus, but I think most people will. All the anti-vax, it'll be a thing where you'll hear on the news every once in a while someone got coronavirus, the
Yeah.
first case in like 2 months because they didn't get the vaccine. I feel like a lot of people are not going to get the vaccine.
Well, I think the problem is going to be as soon as a vaccine is available, I think the problem isn't going to be people getting the vaccine. It's the people who don't get the vaccine initially because there's no way that they can get, like, I'm pretty sure like President Trump has already put in an order for like half the population to get the vaccine whenever it comes out because it's a two-dose vaccine. Like you take it once and then you come back and you take it again. At least that's the way I understand it. So like half the US can get the vaccine like at the very beginning. But there's no way that we get like to a stable vaccinated to unvaccinated percentage probably in I'd say 12 to 18 months. I really think it's going to take like it's going to be a 12 to 18 month like ramp up where stuff really starts to open back up where like concerts start to happen.
Right. Or you have to like for like work, I could see them requiring you to have like a certificate or like a medical note to prove you've gotten the vaccine. Which will be very unfortunate for those who aren't getting it or aren't able to get it
Yeah.
immediately. So it'll be something. I'm curious to see how this goes.
So when we started recording this episode, or I guess when we planned on recording this episode, which I guess was like this time last night, um, I didn't realize until I was going to look for like what we were going to talk about that this is approximately 6 months to the day that we recorded our last episode, I believe. So, like in all of our we might have already said this, but just in all of our procrastination, like we ended up with today.
Right? It's funny how that works, right? We actually ended up doing being consistent by being extremely inconsistent.
Yeah.
Funny how that works out. We're so inconsistent that we're actually.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
hey, I guess that means we can have a season two because we've put it off so bad. Here we are in season two. I guess now we're just doomed to have seasons that are 7 to 10 episodes long. I feel like any longer than that just ruins the ratios.
Yeah, yeah.
We've shackled ourselves into this structure, unfortunately. We've done it ourselves, so can't feel too bad, I guess.
I say that again to bring up like we are looking at this virus from a completely different perspective as when we recorded our last episodes. And I made a tweet right around the time where we were talking about the coronavirus. I made a tweet, um, and I have it pulled up right here. It just said, if we all self quarantine for 3 weeks, this virus blows over and we resume with our normal lives. I said that on March 20th, and that was probably a week after everything shut down because I remember it was over. It was over our spring break, my university's spring break, that that everything just like went to crap. Like it just exponentially got worse, and that was right around then. It's just crazy like looking back like on that tweet and like what I thought like 6 months ago, 7 months ago, I guess, and thinking that like I was gonna be done with this so quickly, and yet here we are. This isn't a question of like will we be done in 3 weeks. This is a question of how long until we open up in 2021? Because I don't imagine
Right.
us opening up at the by the end of 2020.
This is just, we've done this ourselves as a country. This is what we deserve for how we have treated it. I don't think it could have ever blown over 3 weeks.
Oh
But
no.
I also don't think we would be in the current situation we are right now. It wouldn't have made the vaccine go any faster, really. However, I also don't think it would not have destroyed our or well, our death count surely wouldn't be as high. That's for sure, and that's always a good thing actually. That I feel like that's almost enough to justify us as a country of doing a better job. It is enough actually.
Well, obviously the ideal death count for COVID is zero. We don't live in a utopian society, so that's not going to happen.
Right. But I mean, there are things that can be done to minimize it because there are plenty that do quite literally nothing.
Yeah, it's been crazy like cuz I remember thinking my sister basically treated the virus like it was nothing and basically just continued on with her normal life for really the March through August cycle of the virus. Um, I just remember thinking like I'm gonna get the virus from her, or I'm gonna like she's gonna get the virus or something, and like she never got it, and she has not gotten it yet. And as careful as I have been, I have gotten it.
I really think, honestly, I don't know if I would have grasped the gravity of the situation if I was a little bit like I don't know if I was younger. You know what I'm saying? I will say I don't think it really hit most high schoolers until they realize their school's getting canceled or their school's gonna be on online. We're massively social distanced. I hit college students all immediately because we lost the rest of our second semester.
High school is still trying to kind of continue on despite the virus, and then when things got bad, they just shut down completely.
This summer especially, it's easy, or I'll say it's easy to forget about the virus when no one you know has it and no one else is treating it as a big deal. You know what I'm saying? Easy to like live in your own little bubble. But I mean, it's not very hard for that to pop, if you know what I'm saying. All it takes is one person getting coronavirus for you to be like, "Oh, I remember now."
I had an eerie moment, I guess, like like the week before spring break on our last day of classes. I was in a CrossFit class um, that was like run through the university. I had we were just doing our workout or whatever. Got done, and at this point, like I have no true care, I guess, for the virus because I see it, it's happening, but it's not that bad. And I'm seeing it happen elsewhere, but as far as like I'm concerned, I'm expecting to have like a second semester, a normal second semester. And when we get done with CrossFit, I have my like all of my stuff in the back of my car already. I'm literally about to drive back home. And I go to talk to my friend because it's the last class of the before spring break. I was just talking with him and I was like, I'll see you after spring break. And I'm not even joking. He said, I give you a 75% chance we don't come back because of the virus. And I said, really? And he said, just watch. Like everything is about to shut down and it's going to be over spring break. And I drove home thinking he was a maniac. Like thinking this is the most like catastrophic way to look at it. Like there's no way it comes to that. And then watching like the emails flood in towards the end of the week, classes to go online for 3 weeks, and then the next day getting an email, classes to be online for the rest of the semester. Watching everything shut down so quickly after hearing from my friend, who obviously had been paying more attention to it than I did, just talk about we're probably not gonna see each other again.
I'll just say it was interesting for you because it happened all while you're on your spring break. I was still at school though. Here's something that's very interesting. Um, because it was midway through the week for us, just normal class week in which all this stuff came through. You know, I couldn't leave though until that Friday. So, but it was about Wednesday or Thursday that the the emails started coming in. You know, about hey, we're not, your spring break's extended. We got an extended spring break while they determine, quote unquote, determine what like their next moves regarding the coronavirus. Um, uh, and it was just very odd. It was like Wednesday, just like any other normal college day. Everyone's out and about, everyone's everywhere, everyone's, doing their stuff. Thursday and Friday, campus was a ghost town. It was odd. It's like 11:30, 12. Like midday, everyone's going to classes, and it is just barren. It was just it was just very eerie. It felt like something big was happening. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you get that feeling just kind of in your gut, you're like, this is actually kind of this is something like a big event happening right now. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Like you feel like you're witnessing something that's important. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. It was something like that. I just I that whole those last 2 days on campus, I was just like, "This is odd," and I remember taking home, like, a good bit of my stuff just as a precaution because I didn't know if we'd come back or not. I had the feeling we might not, but, you know, I wasn't sure how long that'd be, and sure enough, I didn't pick up the rest of the stuff in my dorm until approximately 2.5 months afterwards from that point. It was May, late May that I picked up my stuff, the rest of my stuff from my dorm.
I think it's really interesting, like that we're talking about this in the sense of like, where were you when you found out COVID was shutting everything down?
I mean, it was a weird experience, I gotta say. I mean, it's one thing in the moment, but looking back on it, I mean, and also just how long it has lasted, it is it is something.
I think that's a big reason of why like you have people like Charlie Kirk on Twitter who are just like into all of the lockdowns now. When you have people like that is because like when you think about it, like we've been in this hole for 6 months, let's say. That's just an easy number. We've been in this hole where everything is changing day by day. The media, it doesn't matter which outlet you look at, Fox News, CNN, like any any side of the media for any political bias has been terrorizing this virus for the last 6 months. Like everything is horrible. Like it's I think that it's like the explanation, I guess, of like why people are starting to be like anti-mask, I guess, because we've been doing stuff for 6 months and it hasn't helped much.
Yeah, it's because the whole thing is that there is no definite cure, and it was marketed as that's all you need to do, but here's the thing. I just don't think people paid too much attention to the details, which is what was important to know, and that masks never were a cure or a way to completely stop the virus, just a way to slow it down and not let it get as bad as it has.
Yeah, and I think that that's just mismarketing by not even the media outlets, but just like companies that were just like, "Hey, make sure you wear a mask," because it basically got marketed like wear a mask to keep yourself safe and to stop the virus, which is not true, but that's just how like
Right, but I felt like it took so long for it to start getting thrown around that you're also wearing a mask because it's not just to keep you safe, because even if you think, "Oh, I won't get it," you know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter. If you get it and you say you're not contagious, doesn't matter. And like the mask is there to protect other people from yourself, just in case, you know?
right. And if everybody cares about everybody else, then the virus doesn't become a problem. Because if everybody is selfless and everybody's caring for their neighbor, then you just create a circle of people who will not give the virus to someone else under this like certain conditions.
But of course, and a plot twist no one expected. Uh, Here we are, because a large sum of people did not follow it accordingly. It's hard. I feel like though a lot of it was just a lot of people just did not understand that it was. I don't know. They really just people just were in disbelief almost that it was gonna affect their entire livelihoods for this long. You know, like people are like, no, no, I can keep doing what I've been doing. Like, why should I stop? You know what I'm saying? It can't be that bad, you know? And what do you know? Unfortunately, it is that bad. Yeah, I don't know. We're not even close to being out of the woods yet, but things have kind of plateaued for now, where we're new cases are obviously still popping up, but I feel like it's not getting any worse, but it's also not getting any better. I haven't looked at stats in a minute because it just depresses me, but
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just like the numbers are so daunting.
they're not climbing drastically anymore. That I do know.
They're just sitting there menacingly.
They're not really decreasing though either.
I hope one day when kids like read about 2020, how I don't know how I'm gonna say this. I've been thinking about this for a while. I don't think people will talk about the coronavirus as in the virus was the problem. I think people will talk about other things that like were the result of the virus, like the weak U.S. leadership that inadvertently caused 200,000 American deaths, or the media. Like I think that we are witnessing the fall of like I guess old age journalism with like news networks like Fox News and CNN because people are just losing trust. I mean, people are starting to realize more and more that these journalists that are presenting the news on TV specifically, I don't think that the actual journalists, like the people who write articles, are nearly as bad. I don't think that's fair to say at all. But the TV Like people, like when you turn on Fox News, like you turn on the television, you don't go to the website. And when you turn on like Fox News on television or CNN, you see Anderson Cooper or Sean Hannity. Like I think a lot of people are just realizing like those people are just actors. Like they are paid to act. They are paid to tell you why you should care, and quite frankly, telling you why you should care because this should upset you or this should scare you sells better than this is why you should be excited. This is why you should be happy.
Right. No, that gets you to pay attention because you'll say something like, "Oh, like you might think, oh, maybe I won't be happy about that or something like that." Or you basically it's harder to find a way to weasel out of something that you're like, oh, this might be bad, and you want to avoid that. You know what I'm saying? The fear of avoiding something is much stronger than the potential of good stuff. You know what I'm saying? Uh, it's a very rudimentary way of saying it, but
Like there have been so many like stories I've read just like across the internet of like people taking this virus and actually turning it into something positive, like creating masks, like making masks for their communities, like seeing YouTubers do like actually good things that like help the virus or help people who are being affected by the virus. And the fact that like there's probably thousands of organizations that completely pivoted from doing one thing to a completely new thing, like to help people who are affected by the virus, and like that we will never hear about them because like they've already happened and they're gone, is crazy. Like you hear about like you hear about from like stories, I guess. You don't hear about it from the news networks, but you hear like stories of like nursing home residents like knitting masks for like hospitals and stuff. And you hear like stories of like people creating these massive like 3D printing farms that like print masks. And you hear also negative stories about people price gouging hand sanitizer and stuff like that. Like you hear them both ways.
that reminds me of a very, very specific thing. Do you remember? This is toward the beginning of quarantine. There was
That
this like
one dude.
that one dude who got busted in like New York or something, who had like what was it like? It was an absurd number of masks, like K95 masks that he scalped or whatever. And then like the CDC or like basically the police just came and said, "Yep, you're getting arrested. We're confiscating all of them."
It wasn't just N95 masks. If we're talking about the same guy, he had also bought the entire Amazon, like the entire supply of hand sanitizer from the like an entire state supply. And then he was selling it. I think it was like Tennessee or North Carolina or something. And he was selling it price incredibly gouged on Amazon. It was ridiculous. Like
Look, if it was like a fad or something, like people just wanted hand sanitizer, sure. But in a pandemic, being opportunistic is not always a good thing. That is all I will say. In that scenario, you're just honestly, you're just being a terrible person, all right? Uh if you're taking masks and hand sanitizer away from people and price gouging them in the middle of a pandemic, I feel like I don't have to tell you why that's wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like like it's one of those things where it's like, you know, you could have done sure you did this. I feel like I don't need to tell you why you messed up here, you know? I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory that you messed up big time here. You made a severe tactical error. Your judgment was heavily your judgment was poop, alright? There are a lot of ways to say it, but, I already don't like price gouging and scalping is just a natural thing, but also, I mean, obviously I don't like it, but in this scenario, it's just like, "Come on, man."
there should be no like instructional content to tell you why this is wrong. Like it is so blatantly wrong in not even like a legal sense, but in just a moral sense.
Right, really. It's the type of thing you think about, it's like, "Oh, someone can be a terrible person and do that, but I'm not gonna do that because that would be actually terrible."
My
Comes
man
out
just
here.
said, "What if I did?"
But okay, hey, but what if I did? And the other one looks at him and is like, "Surely you won't." Well, alas, surely he did, and surely he was thrown in the slammer. I think with that we've seriously talked a good bit about that one guy.
Yeah.
I'll never I just remember it so vividly because I remember there's a picture that I actually have, like, ingrained in my brain of, like, them escorting like, he's in the frame and they're escorting him out of this building or whatever, like, the police, like, his hands, like, are handcuffed behind his back, but also in the background, they've got, like, a big, like, supply truck, and they're, like, loading huge
Yes.
boxes of, like, the sand sanitizer from his, like, it's like an apartment, you know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
not like his house. Like, they're parked outside the street on the street, and they're just unloading boxes, huge boxes. I was just like, "Wow, incredible." Did he buy it all at the same time? Who got it in there? Did he have to hire a moving crew to get it all in there? It was a lot of big box. It was incredible to see in the most just I was I wasn't surprised. I was just shocked to see that someone actually did it. I can't believe you would actually have the lack of morality to do that.
I think in the current state where we are right now in the virus, we're kind of just in the fallout of it. So we can kind of look back and see like we can have an appropriate perspective on I guess how the virus has like changed up until now. I'd say right now, I'd say that it's pretty okay depending on your community and how like safe the virus and how controlled the virus is in your community to start opening up. And we're seeing that with like movie theaters starting to open and stuff like that. Like obviously with restrictions, it's not like they're just saying like go gung ho and like just you can stand shoulder to shoulder with this man who you do not know who may or may not have gotten a COVID test. Like it's obviously restricted. I think one thing that I kind of alluded to this with like the media talking about like only the negative stuff, but I think that it's important to talk about like the coronavirus, not in the sense of the virus itself, but as an agent for like opening us up to like weaknesses and prejudices and like I guess guilts that we had indulged in before. I think the perfect example of that is Black Lives Matter and how its movement kind of exploded due to some very not so good events that happened during the virus. But just seeing people's reactions, seeing people all cooped up, I think that especially with the George Floyd protests, I think that like if anything, the coronavirus situation like put a lot more weight on like that moment.
Coronavirus kinda slowed down everything else, and I'll say this, when I feel like it gave it a lot more visibility than it may have got otherwise, which was very good, um, for getting it out there, um, and, like, spreading awareness about.
It's sad like that we talk about George Floyd after well that moment that kind of I guess kickstarted the next wave of the Black Lives Matter movement. But we also like we don't name the other like obviously like Breonna Taylor's one.
Right, and that was one that was before George Floyd that has been retroactively, like, reopened and reinvigorated. That was before George, way before, a good I think it was a good bit before George Floyd, and it was reinvigorated, but I honestly that in that case specifically is particularly bad.
I think at this point going too in depth for each individual case that happened. There
We
certainly
could
wasn't
be
just
here for
one.
hours. We would be here for hours going through every single one.
Right.
It's sad there's so many.
It's sad that also like it's not like there's no defense for most for I can't even see most for 99% of them. There's no excuse. I think that the solution isn't to look at these individual events, but rather to look at like its effect on the world from a from like a bird's eye view, which isn't fair to the victims whatsoever. But I think for the sake of time, like the Black Lives Matter movement exploded during the pandemic. We didn't have the chance to talk about it because we had no motivation to talk about it on a podcast.
Well, it was just in the middle of just getting blitzed by everything else, you know?
Yeah. It's interesting to see like I consider the state of the Black Lives Matter movement like right now um to be in a generally positive spot. Like I think that like protests that are being made obviously the non-violent ones I think are pretty fair.
Most of them are nonviolent. They're either made a bit more violent or sections that are not affiliated but get lumped in within the media as just, yep, it's at the same place, it's the same thing when they're really not affiliated with the main protest groups.
I don't think we should get too deep with specifically talking about Black Lives Matter and its impact and its success, I guess, during the depends on how you define success, but I guess
Right.
it's
I think it's a bit too early to call it on anything like that.
yeah, I guess it's just more like it like the movement was reinvigorated. And I didn't realize how long ago some of the other protests had been. I really didn't. Like I didn't put two and two together and realize like that was 4 years ago when like some of the other protests were happening.
Right, right. It's been a while since uh, the last big series of protests. Here we are 4 years later having the same thing again over really the same type of things. Goes to show you, I guess. I mean, it's a problem that's existed for a while. It's not just a few, I mean, they're not really isolated incidents anymore when they happen frequently. I think what need I don't the thing that makes me the most sad is that I don't know if any kind of government or like I don't know if anyone will ever do or at least not for a while. I'm just not confident in our current I don't know, leadership structure that we will get the solution that is really needed for this problem. You know what I'm saying? For a while. I just don't think it'll be properly solved because it's not a simple solution. I'll say that. It's a very difficult it's not easy to implement necessarily. And it's much harder to do than just cutting funding or giving funding in some scenarios. Uh I don't know. It's not as simple as something like that. It requires uh someone's actually got to want to change it. Actually, that's the key thing. Actually, is what we need is someone in charge who actually wants to change it in a meaningful way. You know?
Yeah, and I don't think it's I don't I think that for the most part the problems come from like a country's culture. So it's like the United States people like it's not just the police department, it's the person who is a police officer. And I think that as far as culture goes, I think yeah, I think that as far as like the culture goes, I think that the longer that we go on, unfortunately, we can do all of the like protesting we want. We can say like people's names and stuff, but I really don't think that the problem will really get fixed until like many years from now, where people are like who grew up during this time are starting to be able to form their own opinions based off of things they experienced while they were younger. Because we have a lot of like older people who still feel prejudiced towards African American citizens, like older people, probably like the generation before us or two generations before us. But I think that as like we go on, that crowd will start to weed out, I guess. But I don't think it's unfair to ask for like reform on a federal scale for just like improved police officer training and vetting, and also like community reviewing cases that they believe are, like have like a community board that like can sit down and be like, we want to send this case for another review because we don't think that given what we know this was a fair judgment.
I think like you've just mentioned a few of many possible thoughtful ways you can approach this. Thing is that the solutions that I have heard from people who can actually make these things happen, um, I don't know. They feel like easy fixes or like quick fixes that don't really help the problem at all. Um, I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, the root problem will never totally go away, but the root problem will go like you said, I think get way better over time, especially considering just how many people are growing up in this day and age and seeing the things going around. are going on around them, um, and just are not being raised into prejudice, you know. Uh, but yeah, I think going forward, things will get better. But I mean, it's definitely not going to be quick. And I do think some reform, like I also think another good solution would be to just improve screening processes, have stricter requirements on what type of person you need to be a police officer, you know? Because I mean, at the end of the day, it does take a very specific person, I feel like, specific type of person to be a police officer. And yes, numbers are great, but at the end of the day, I do think you got to keep a level of quality, you know?
Yeah. And I don't think that the changes we've mentioned are unrealistic either. I think that those are very like obtainable things. Like that, yeah, it's not like we're saying I don't think that it's wise at all to just be like defund the police or like all cops are bad. I don't think it's fair to say that. I think that if we really want real change, you don't do either extreme. You don't let things happening the way they've been happening. You don't let that continue. Nor do you just decide like, oh yeah, like all these police officers, like, yeah, we're defunding the entire police department. Like, good luck.
Right. I mean, I honestly think most, not all. There are some people who legitimately think that is, but I think most people who say that don't. They're just saying it in an extreme way, which I don't think that's necessarily wise to do. But most of them just mean they want to cut funding, which I don't know why they don't just say that. I guess it doesn't have the same ring, but I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's a bad thing, but in and of itself, I don't think the police departments necessarily are struggling for money or anything right now. I don't think that would hurt them, or that would like I don't know. I mean, I don't think that's like a bad idea or anything, you know. Uh, but I don't know. I just think there are way more effective things that can be done to actually make this have a smaller chance of ever happening again, you know? But then again, I mean, it's a complicated issue with at least as far as like trying to prevent things like this from happening when it's sometimes hard to know which type of people are gonna, abuse power, I guess.
Before we go on, this episode of the podcast is sponsored by Anchor. When we started our podcast, we were paying a monthly subscription to host our audio on the internet. And because we're broke college kids, that was not ideal for us because, well, we've got to eat somehow. However, then we learned about Anchor and we were instantly blown away. Making a brand new podcast or transferring an existing podcast to Anchor might be the easiest thing that I've ever done, and let me explain why. First of all, it's completely free. You can upload all of your content there and Anchor will host it for you. Secondly, Anchor has a really good system that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. You can literally create your podcast from wherever you are. One of our problems with our monthly subscription was that we were having trouble distributing our podcast to multiple spaces, but Anchor will actually distribute your podcast for you so that it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and so many more. Plus, Anchor's sponsorship things make it really easy to make money from your podcast even if you have a very small listener base. It's legitimately everything that you can need to make a podcast and to grow your audience in one place. If you're looking to start a new podcast or transfer your existing podcast over to another platform that's free, Anchor really is a no-brainer. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started podcasting now. Now back to your regularly scheduled episode. I guess we've talked about Black Lives Matter a lot, and I guess we've delved more into the political side. I'd like to pivot because we are approaching November, and it is November 2020. We are approaching November 2020. That is an election year. I feel like it's the coronavirus has been the perfect storm to just turn our political landscape, especially as we enter this election cycle, into a complete.
To a health
Yeah, exactly. It's a hellstorm.
hellscape. It's a hellscape.
Was it last week that we had the first debate, or was it the week before?
It was last week, last Tuesday.
Last Tuesday, we had the first presidential debate of two. It's the first debate of two, right?
I think there's two. I mean, I don't know. Look, I'm watching the second one. At this point, it's not trying to convince me anything about the candidates.
I just remember watching the debate last week in Discord with you and some other friends, and just,
agony.
well, agony and just like, I remember for the 2016 election, neither of us were old enough to vote, but I remember like in the 2016 election, like looking at the election as a lesser of two evils. Like looking at it like, because I remember we had some discussions, like we were talking something like Trump is easily the lesser of the two evils compared to Hillary Clinton. Like you could have that discussion, or you could say Hillary Clinton was the lesser of two evils, considering that if we had Hillary Clinton as president, then we would know like it would just be another Clinton in office. We wouldn't have like this chaos that we had with Trump. Like you could make the argument that there is a lesser of two evils. I find it very hard to believe any argument made that either Trump is the lesser of two evils or Biden is the lesser of two evils. I just feel like that's not even a discussion we can have, considering both candidates suck. Like last election cycle they sucked, but like this cycle they suck more.
Right. No, last cycle, I feel like you could say, at least about Trump, I think you could say, well, like you do at the end of the day, you don't know what his presidency is going to look like. At this point, we know generally what a Trump presidency looks like. It's either 4 more years of the same, which yeah, that's all I'm going to say. And then or Biden. You get Biden. That's it. That's your other option.
It's hard to know that like this is our first year we're able to vote, that we're legally allowed to vote. I mean, it's something that I've been looking forward to really since like the 2016 election. Like I was following politics a whole lot closer then.
I was looking forward to it until I
Yeah.
figured out what our candidates were.
Yeah, I just remember saying stuff between like 2016 and 2020 like oh, I wonder who like the candidates will be, or like oh, I wonder who I'll vote for, like thinking those in my head. And now I'm just like I'm going to write in a candidate and there's nothing you can do about it. Like you cannot convince me on like the evangelical side to vote for Trump, and you cannot convince me on the logical side to vote for Biden, because both candidates suck so bad. I would rather write in Andrew Yang and have my vote thrown into the trash because
I just, I just, the thing I've run into, right, is I just can't, I can't vote for either of them. Like, at the end of the day, you could tell me to settle for one. You could tell me to do that. I just feel like I don't want to vote for someone I don't want in office. At the end of the day, that's it. I mean, yeah, my vote won't count in the battle, I guess. I don't know. I just feel like I can't vote for Trump or Biden, and I I I can't do it. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, and just watching the debate just made me realize like we're doomed. There's no option where we're not doomed.
There is no good candidate. They both suck, and I wouldn't even say either of them suck less. It's become clear actually in a lot of the debates. It was I think one thing that I found very interesting in the debate actually is how Biden and Trump actually answered a lot of their questions in very similar ways, just phrased in different ways, or that were more, I don't know. Like they answered questions or like in a way that would please either of their sides, but they really were saying a very similar thing.
Well, I think that that's the entire point of the debate is to appeal to the moderates, and that's the most moderate we've heard Biden ever. Because Biden, the problem with Biden, or not the problem with Biden, the situation with Biden is you get to the DNC and it's Bernie Sanders versus Joe Biden. And if you are a member of the DNC, I cannot see you in any way saying we need, because Bernie Sanders is like a progressive. Like he is the like most progressive of the progressives. Joe Biden is progressive. He's also old as hell. So like I don't know which of those options would have been better off. I would have loved to see a Trump versus Bernie debate, because that would be the most like embarrassing debate our country has ever seen, because they'd just be yelling at each other the entire time.
Because they're polar opposites,
Yeah.
quite literally.
I just how we got to this point like is sad.
I just cannot believe that Joe Biden got the nominee. I cannot believe it.
Oh no, amongst so many other candidates.
There are so many other better ones. Honestly, look, I don't 100% agree with everything Bernie says, but I at least respect Bernie generally.
I mean, Bernie Sanders has like years and years of experience of like being on record saying the same things that he did.
Right. At least he's consistent in that regard. I mean, I can respect that at the very least, despite me not agreeing with everything he says. As far as more like viability of actually getting that to work. Um, as far as his promises, I don't know if they're doable in a feasible way. At least I think Bernie would be a more like I feel like actually, ironically, it would get more people. I see. I don't know. I from the DNC standpoint, I guess they're just trying to. They've just kind of said, you know what? Screw young people, pretty much. We're just gonna appeal to the because honestly, Joe Biden appeals to a lot to like more your traditional Democrat age range, like of just older Democrats.
It makes me sad to be like the entire 2016 to 2020 hearing the Democrats be like, we have to put somebody up against Trump that will win. We have to, and you got all the way down to the wire, like every like just hearing like vote blue, vote blue, vote blue, vote blue, so that you don't have like Trump in office again. And so we're like, all right, we're gonna vote blue, we're gonna vote blue no matter who, if you want to say that. Like just hearing that over and over again, and then like watching candidates fall off that you thought were pretty good: Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, Andrew Yang, like people like these pretty respectable Democrat candidates just fall off one by one, and just seeing it come down to Joe Biden as the winner really just like it's like you had me. Like I was prepared to vote blue in 2020. I was prepared for my first vote ever to be for the Democrat Party. And now you've gotten me here. And you've given me someone who I can't elect because I don't know if he'll be alive at the end of his term.
Well, not to mention, I just really don't think Biden will actually provide. I don't know. What people are looking for is not what Biden is going to give them. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
absolutely not.
No one on the Democratic. I don't know. I I feel like it was a major misplay. Or is it an extreme misplay by the DNC to put Joe Biden in? If Joe Biden wins, people I feel like going forward will be very disappointed in the or people won't forget the DNC doing this, especially if Trump gets reelected, but also if Joe Biden gets elected. But I feel like more so if Trump manages to get reelected, it will be quite literally because they picked Joe Biden. Because I think any other candidate being more moderate would at least, I don't know, would have had more of a chance, or at least equally as extreme. I don't know.
I guess we're just in the boat where if Biden gets elected, we sing the praises of the DNC. And if Trump gets reelected, we all hate the DNC.
Well, I don't think anyone will even praise the DNC if Joe Biden gets elected. It'll be more of a slight sigh of relief for a lot of people before you go back on the crazy train. You know, maybe not the true, not the same level of crazy train, but if you want actual change, Joe Biden is not your man. If you want the crazy train, you vote for Trump. Thing is, I think most people have had enough for of the crazy train. I can say for sure that I for one have had enough of the crazy train.
I think we've talked a lot about why Biden is unelectable. I think we can. I don't think it's very hard for us to pivot as to why Trump is not electable, and that's just.
Nowadays, I just don't. I cannot, with a good conscience, vote for Trump after his presidency.
Yep.
before you could have made a case to vote for Trump. I don't really see voting. The only type reason you would vote for Trump is if you're a Trump diehard fan or if you're just determined to vote Republican regardless.
Well, that's the thing is that Trump's following is almost like they call themselves the silent majority, but quite frankly, they're not very quiet. Like
No, I would say they're the vocal minority, ironically.
the Trump crazies are, I guess it's interesting to look at like because I don't think we've had. I mean, we have a very narrow perspective on like the political landscape of the U.S. But like, I mean, I can't think of any political candidate who has ever had this like cult like following behind them.
Right, where it's not like, "Oh, we like this candidate, we want this candidate to get elected," and, like, they're passionate about them getting elected, but not only that, they're passionate about though it's like it's like a fan culture, you know what I'm saying? If it's like if their favorite artist coming to town, they're all getting ready to go to the Trump rally, you know what I'm saying? It's just the vibe is not the same, and I'll be honest, I don't l it gives me an eerie vibe. I do not like it. I do not like it one bit.
It's the whole vote red no matter who, but if it's anybody else, we're not voting for them because we only support Trump.
Right? It's kind of created a new, like, I don't know, like a Trump fan. I'm curious. What I'm very curious to see actually is what those people do in 4 years from now.
Well, the funny thing is, if you look at like conservative meme accounts, like the joke is like, if Trump gets reelected, like then we have Melania Trump like become our president for like the next 8, and then Barron Trump after that.
Oh
Like
yeah,
that's
it's like a Trump dynasty.
yeah, like a Trump dynasty, which I for
I've seen
one,
those posts.
yeah, it's you don't have to go far to find
I
them.
it it's actually just strange, like just like the fixation people have on a candidate or on Trump as a candidate. At least the group.
But that's the thing is it's not just the candidate. It's
Right,
the
no, it's
entire
Trump.
family. It's the name.
I just don't like the way it's like an idolization. I really don't like it, you know what I'm saying? Just gives me bad vibes.
A lot of people genuinely think like he is a he's bringing the gospel back to America, which
That oh, man, that's a can of worms. Oh, that gets me
I don't know if we
riled
have
up.
I don't know if we have time to talk about this in depth, but I'll say this. If you believe that Trump is an evangelical at all, if you truly believe after the last 4 years, you can say without a doubt in your mind that you believe Trump is a Christian. You have not been paying attention to anything he has said or done over the last 4 years.
I think it is he has made it painfully obvious that it is he utilizes it solely. I can't even remember. He barely says in public, like does anything like I don't know. Not to mention his actions and stuff. He doesn't have to like um be I don't know saying or whatever like that he's not a Christian for his like his actions just demonstrate that, right? But I feel like he just he's made it more than apparent. He's made it actually painfully easy to see that, and it boggles my mind that people even still say that he is saying he's a Republican candidate. I mean, obviously, yeah, sure, but trying to say he's a like the Christian candidate, I just don't know what's become of some people, man, to say that.
Yeah, and I've said this before, like when we've talked outside of this, but like I have no problem with anybody being like, my beliefs line up with Trump beliefs, so or Trump's beliefs, so I'm gonna vote for Trump. I have no problem with anybody making that argument because like it's America. You have the right to be able to vote. You have the right to have your own opinion. If you're gonna say like I'm voting for Trump because I agree with Trump, that's okay to say. I think that the real murky area and where you will get a slap in my mind is if you try to make the argument that I'm voting for Trump because he's a Christian, because that's just a logically false error. That's a logically false
Right,
statement.
right. I don't know. I don't like the way his fans look at him. You know what I'm saying? it's just it feels like they'll vote for him he could commit the largest war crime known to man. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like they'd still vote for him and find a way to rationalize it. At
Yeah,
least that
like
group.
assassinating the second in command of Iraq.
Yeah, yeah, like that, actually, exactly like that. It's crazy. If only that happened. That would have been crazy if that happened.
Garrett, that was this year.
I know, dude.
That
That was literally like
that was
January like
January.
2nd. It was like the actual first like days into 2020.
It's so funny to see people rush to defend Trump too.
Right. Well, it's because I'll say this: no one does that for Joe Biden. I'll say
Oh
that.
no, dude, Joe Biden slips up
Well,
and everybody's
because
like, we
well,
know.
yeah, I that's the thing with like I feel like no one really believes in Joe Biden, which is kind of just funny. On either side, the only people who are voting for Biden really are people who are just voting blue anyways, like just because it's not Trump or yeah, actually that's about it. Actually, that's anyone who's and then maybe there's a few people. I think well I think a lot of older Democrats will vote for Joe Biden. I think that's why the DNC picked him. It's because they kind of win over their majority of like older. It makes no sense to your. The thing is, I just think it was a terrible move by the DNC for young Americans that you would potentially get on the Democratic train. You know what I'm saying? Like you like this has been it will be the biggest political blunder I think ever made as far as, like, if it turns out, like, if Trump gets reelected, I think. And it was still pretty bad, either way, but I think if Trump gets reelected, it is the biggest blunder ever to not produce a candidate, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So you talk about like how like the pick for Joe Biden is like beneficial for older Americans, not so much younger Americans. What do you think about the idea of like being able to vote until a certain age? Like let's say you can become president at 35. Let's say you can vote from 18 until 60. What do you think about like cuz obviously it's a freedom. It's a freedom in our country to like be able to vote. It's a freedom to be able to go to the polls and like share your opinion. But at what point does it become like because at some point you're not voting for your generation. Like you're not voting for the betterment of the generation that's growing up. You're voting for the benefit of your generation, which you could say the same about young Americans too. I just I guess I'm just wondering like what do you think about like let's say we cut off voting at 60.
That's a very interesting I don't know. I mean, obviously, I think that that's just fundamentally, like, that just really can't happen. It would be I feel like it does make a level of sense, though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is like cuz you can say the exact same thing about young
Oh,
Americans.
right, right, no, no, I mean, it's not something that really it's just it's anti-American in that regard. I don't I think everyone should still be able to vote regardless. Results would be much different. That is all I will say.
Well, it's interesting to see this is I just have pulled up the Pew Research page for the 2016 election and like the voter demographics, whatever. And among 18 to 29-year olds, 58% of 18 to 29-year olds voted for Clinton. 58. And I believe this is saying that 45% of people, or not 45, 28% of people voted in the 18 to 29 category for Trump. But as that number goes up, like the younger the candidate, the bluer the number is. And the older the candidate, the more likely their vote was red. And it's also apparent among like, I mean, even if you go into like, this isn't even a part of the question, but like, if you look at like college grads versus non-college grads, 57% of college grads that voted for Clinton, and 50% of non-college graduates voted for Trump.
In the 2016 election, that makes complete sense just because Trump's main selling points right then, well, the whole Make America Great Again was all initially aimed at improving work standards and like reinvigorating a lot of dying industries in America. And I honestly, that's kind of how he got his super fans. Is what he's done is, or what he did. All his marketing was not like, "Hey, I'm gonna fix this. I'm gonna make this better." No, he's like, "I'm gonna save this. I'm gonna make this the way it should be. I'm gonna save you guys." You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. It just it wasn't directed in a way as like, "I'm gonna fix things." It was directed more of like, or like, "Things will be better." It was more of, "I'm going like, it's going to happen. I'm going to do this. No one else would be able to do this," you know? I don't know. It's just it's all in the tone and the way he says he marketed his campaign that really got a lot of, well, um, lower class Americans kinda who are just stuck in like, fail like, more just struggling industries, you know? Um, he gave them a lot of hope. And honestly, he did end up improving those industries, some of which were dying out due to the, like a coal industry, for example, actually. It's a really good example because it's one of the ones he improved. But also the reason coal industry was dying is because we are starting to find more efficient and more environmentally safe options of just fuel. And that's why it had been that way. But yeah, I don't know. Uh
Yeah, voter demographics I expect to be absurd.
in
I don't
2016 that was a big thing. But here's the thing. Trump's campaign for this election hasn't really focused on any primary things. Actually, the main thing I've heard him say, actually, in regards to what he will do if he gets elected, is he'll actually put the stimulus check talks back on.
That's actually really
um,
scary, and I'm glad you brought that up because he's basically holding the entire country hostage until he gets reelected.
right.
Like, that's. I'm gonna find the actual tweet. Trump
No,
tweets so much, it might take a while, but I'm gonna find that
it
tweet.
might, but no, I was like, really, that's the only thing he said. This is what I'm gonna do if I'm gonna get reelected that I've seen. He's probably said a few other things, but that's the only thing I've seen.
No, he
'Cause,
said
like,
that,
in
and
2016,
then
he said a lot of stuff, but this time, he's said very little other than, like, about what he will do. Other than that, he will keep doing what he's been doing, which for a lot of people, no bueno.
here's the tweet. I did find it through my friend who has retweeted it with just the quote tweet is just what? The tweet reads Nancy Pelosi is asking for $2.4 trillion dollars to bail out poorly run, high crime Democrat states, money that is in no way related to COVID 19. We made a very generous offer of $1.6 trillion dollars, and, as usual, she is not negotiating in good faith. I am rejecting their request and looking to the future of the country. I have instructed my representatives to stop negotiating until after the election, when, immediately after I win, we will pass a major stimulus bill that focuses on hardworking Americans and small businesses. I have asked the majority leader, Mitch McConnell, not to delay, but to instead focus full time on approving my outstanding nominee to the United States Supreme Court, Amy Coney Barrett. Our economy is doing very well. The stock market is at record levels. Jobs and unemployment's also coming back in record numbers. We are leading the world in economic recovery, and the best is yet to come.
What a banger of a tweet. So many things. I'm not So many things to unpack in that tweet.
You've seen the that speech from the RNC that they gave, where the lady gave, that was like super impassioned, and she just basically she just screamed the best is yet to come, and then it just pans out and there's no applause because no one's there.
Right, right. Yep. The poorly green screened in stuff. Oh, I saw it. That was a tad weird to watch.
I guess just unpacking this tweet like point by point. I mean, we have no idea if they actually made a $1.6 trillion counter offer. it seems weird when it's, especially since it's a stimulus package. Like, it seems weird to be negotiating like what's going to the people like it's a counter offer.
Right, right. Look. You want to help people who are sick and dying, right, right. But here's my counter offer. Let's give them less money this time. How about that? Yes. I know there's like a good bit on the back end that might not get relief, but
This isn't deal or no deal. Like,
no deal. It's die or no die is what it is. Just give people like I don't know, man. It's one thing if it's welfare checks. This is not welfare checks. This is they're literally in the hospital and dying, and you're just offering to help them not be tanked economically when they get out of the hospital if they survive. Like, and then also helping families out for if they do pass away, um, so they don't pass on they don't inherit their terrible COVID medical bills. You know, I like that's the purpose, right? It's not like, "Oh, we're just giving money to people who are sitting on their butts all day," like what you hear a lot of Republicans talk about when they're talking about, well, just, welfare checks, which, I mean, it's a fair argument in that regard, but this is not the same as that, you know what I'm saying? This is relief work, is what this is, and, putting off relief work for your political agenda, it's a no-no in my opinion. I think and a lot of people would agree with me.
yeah, I guess just moving on to the next point, you kind of touched on that. It's just I have instructed my representatives to stop negotiating until after the election, when immediately after I win, and then paraphrase, we will pass like the bill that actually helps, that we think will help. Just that immediately, like that sentence or that phrase, stop negotiating until, yeah, yeah, like it's bizarre to me that like I think one of the things we're taking for granted and also like in the wrong way is Trump's Twitter, because it is actually like genuinely what he's saying. Like, he is actually writing these things out. And I think that that's something we've never had before. But like, you can't just say, like, this isn't like a case of like the representative for the Biden campaign who tweeted this tweet no longer works for the Biden campaign. This isn't that. This is the president of the United States, unfiltered thoughts, um instructing his puppets, I guess you could call them, to just like not do anything about like this bill until he knows that he's going to be safe. And then they're going to pass it. Because it's not like, this isn't like we will attempt to pass. The language is not like we will try. The language is we will. This is exactly what's going to happen. It's like a hostage deal. You pay me $1 million and I let go of the 8 hostages that are currently in this gas station. Like, that's exactly what it is.
Yes,
Like,
it is. And then getting on to the next bit. I really don't know anything about the Supreme Court nominee, Amy. Is it Amy Comey Ginsburg
not Ginsburg, Amy
or not
Coney Barrett.
Ginsburg? Barrett. I'm actually stupid. I'm thinking of Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
From what I've briefly read about the candidate, I mean, it's not like she's unqualified, and it's not like she's not like she's a relatively like, how should I put this? She seems very upstanding. Like, it's not like Kavanaugh had a lot of his past where like there was a lot of people like being like, we can't put Kavanaugh in because of like things that happened in his past. I don't immediately notice anything that would be like, we can't put her in because of her past, like to a Kavanaugh degree at the very least.
And no one's going crazy after her. It seems like it is kind of, for once, been something that kind of just it happens, and it's just gonna happen. You know?
Well, a lot of people are mad because I mean, think about it from like a left, from like the blue side. You successfully have voted out Donald Trump. You've beaten the boss or whatever, and then all of a sudden, right before he leaves office, his final message is he makes the Supreme Court um like very, I guess, conservative is the best way I can describe that. Like sure, he's left, and like his Twitter, like you can unfollow his Twitter, you never have to see him tweet at real Donald Trump ever again.
Supreme Court justices are a enormous deal. Given what Supreme Court rulings, the impact they've had on this country and can have, I don't know. I think it's an extremely big deal. Um, I would say people don't. Some people don't value them as much as the presidential election, and I think that they're very close. I mean, the thing is that the public doesn't have an enormous, you know, input in it comparatively to the presidential election. But the thing is that Supreme Court justices are a really big deal. Um, uh, and I don't know. I know. There was some debate I remember over like, oh, well, can Trump even do it now? And he's like, yep, I'm doing it. And well,
The reason people are saying that he can't do it isn't because legally he can't do it. It's because morally he shouldn't do it, because it was the same thing that happened in Obama's election year. I guess that's what they're, or I guess his re-election. Yeah, his re-election. Um, it might have been between George Bush and Obama, because I think they called it the Biden rule because Biden was still in the Senate. I think that's what they did. I don't remember. I don't know the specifics. I was 7. Like, um, I think that our country is in a very interesting state right now with regards with it's just like one big conglomeration of, well, crappery. Like, first of all, we're being hit by the coronavirus, and it's impacting millions of Americans' lives daily. It's continuing to impact our lives as it continues to spread on college campuses. The Black Lives Matter movement is more fervent than ever. I mean, they're more active than they have been in recent years with regards to protests, with regards to social media presence. They've been more active. And then you've got the election. You've got to decide. You have lots of people being able to vote for the first time, seeing 2 candidates up on stage and wondering, like, is this who I have to choose between? Like, it's just one big thing.
L.
Yeah.
One big L. Yep, it's just a big fat L. I don't. At least regarding the candidates, I mean, I feel like in other years you could at least look at the candidates and be like, okay, well, this one has policies I agree with, and like work through what they actually are like looking to do, right? And then make a decision based off of that, right? And then like just on whether you like them as a candidate or not. I feel like that half of that's just gone. It's just, do you want 4 years of Trump or do you want Biden who will literally not do anything? So it's just, oh man, it's something. Saying this is a long podcast from us. This is probably our longest podcast. Well, we'll see if we edit it, if it edits out
Yeah, it's
nicely.
like recording time's like an hour and a half right now.
Yeah.
We've
So
also been
maybe not.
absent. We've also been absent for,
Yeah. So we had a lot to cover. You know,
yeah.
we're kind of covering everything we missed as far as podcast talking.
Yeah, and this
It's
episode was this episode
2020,
was mostly politics and ethics and
right?
morals and stuff. So hopefully the next time we come around to doing a podcast, it will be about
Technology.
technology we missed, because there's definitely a lot that happened in the tech world. We just haven't compiled it all into like
Looking at our
topics.
stuff, we really talked about the Google Stadia. It
Completely
almost
irrelevant now.
literally. I still see the commercials every once in a while. Man,
They have a
I
really annoying jingle. It's like
it was.
Stadia.
I hated it. I hated the commercials. They really just were really annoying. But not only that, I think honestly, just this is like an ending note. Google Stadia literally managed to be quite literally one of the largest tech flops I have seen in a long time. As far as something that came out, got mass produced, and then no one bought it. Like it was one of those things like some things like they'll get in the concept stage, they'll go into like not mass production, but like, they'll have a small marketing campaign, maybe go into a little bit of production and then they won't sell well and they discontinue, quick. But this they had a huge marketing campaign, like like Super Bowl, big football games, Stadia commercials would come on regularly. You know what I'm saying? On YouTube constantly, on Twitch constantly. They were running a lot of ads for Google Stadia. Everyone I feel like knew about it, just no one bought it. It was
Yeah, I don't think we should go too far into the computer into
right.
into
We gotta
Google
leave.
Stadia, but I think it'd be interesting to do an episode on Google Stadia, because when did we make that episode? Like last November, like a year ago?
Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting to talk about tech flops in general. Um, Google Stadia comes to mind, obviously, but
I still hear about the movie on
another one that comes to mind is Quibi.
Quibi. I actually don't know too much. I know about Quibi. I don't know about like much of maybe that's self-explanatory. The fact that I don't know very much about it actually is well explains why it's a tech flop.
Well, I think before we get too far into tech, we should probably close out the podcast. Um,
Been another fun one. Season 2 off to a great start, I guess. Um, Michael Bublé, if you're out there, my offer. You still have to listen to our podcast, please. I'm begging. I guess I can leave this to you, John, to now properly close it out. I've said my important things to say before we end.
yeah, I guess I just like to say thanks for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed our return to the podcast space. If you like to find updates when we're doing podcasts, I'm going to try to be more active on Twitter. At I think it's just or it's Twitter. It's at the Big Tech Guys on Twitter, so you can follow us there. We'll have links to everything I'm talking about in the description. If you're listening through Anchor, we have this nice little support. We have nice little buttons on our profile, I guess. It's a support and message. You can use those features to send us a message or support us monetarily. We do this all for free. We don't really make any kind of money off of this. So if you think the podcast is good and you'd like to support us, there's a way you can support us monetarily. But also there's the message feature, which I believe allows you to record a voice message to send to us. And if we get enough of them, we could always do an episode where we answer questions from the audience, because I mean, Garrett and I have our biases on what we enjoy in technology. We like to hear, I guess, what's on the minds of our listeners, stuff that maybe we've missed. So send us a voice message on anchor.fm/bigtechguys. If you're on Spotify or iTunes, I guess just follow the podcast, share with your friends. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more podcasts in the future. Just share it with your friends. If they like technology, if they like ethics, if they like politics, and kind of how they all blend together, then I'm sure they'll like our mindless rambling for like the last hour and a half. We have an extensive catalog of a total of 8 episodes at this point, so they have plenty to listen to. That's really all I've got. I mean, I think I covered everything. Follow us on Twitter. Like the video if it's on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify, iTunes. You can hear the podcast wherever podcasts are listened to. You can support us on anchor.fm/big tech guys. They are also our sponsors for this video. So it's a shout out to them. Yeah, you got any closing words? That was a long outro.
Michael Bublé, please watch our podcast, or please listen to our podcast. I'm begging you. Other than that, I really have nothing else to add, I feel like. Well, without getting into another podcast, that is.
Well, thanks for listening, guys. Until next time, hopefully we can release another episode sooner than 6 months. But
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
I guess you'll just have to wait and see. So thanks for watching, guys. We will see you guys next time.
Well, there you go.